Good evening, everyone. I am Kritika Monga from the Marketing Department of Elsevier India. Today, me and my colleague Mehek will moderate the entire session along with our speaker of the day. We would like to welcome you all for joining us for the session today. We are sure that this session will help you in getting prepared for your upcoming physiology exam. That's what we are looking forward to as a key takeaway from this session. Before moving forward, I would like to lay down some hygiene rules for smooth execution of this webinar. You will be on mute by default throughout the session to maintain the decorum of the session. You are requested to please post your questions in the Q&A tab seen at the bottom of your screen. I would request you please refrain from putting any questions in the chat box as they will not be addressed. I will again reiterate, please post your questions in the Q&A tab which you can see at the bottom of your screen. Also, from time to time, you will see polls popping up at your screen. So we request you to please participate and answer those as these are anonymous to make this session more interactive. I again welcome everyone and now I hand it over to Mehek for introducing the speaker.
Thank you, Kritika. Good evening, everyone. I am Mehek from the Marketing Division of Elsevier India. I would like to welcome you all to today's session. Let me start with giving a brief introduction of the speaker for today's session, Dr. Sadhna Joshi Mendhorwar. Dr. Sadhna is a qualified medical doctor with over 18 years of rich work experience. She is an academician, researcher, author, practitioner, speaker, and voluntary social contributor. She completed her post-graduation from the prestigious GS Medical College and King Edward Memorial Hospital in Mumbai. She currently works as a professor of physiology at Dr. D.Y. Patil Medical College, Hospital and Research Center at Navi Mumbai, India. Dr. Sadhna is an ambassador for India for the European Lifestyle Medical Organization based out of Geneva and is working closely with this organization to promote scientific evidence-based lifestyle interventions for arresting rapid rise in non-communicable diseases like cancer, diabetes, cardiovascular, etc. She is also an expert in lifestyle medicine, which is an emerging specialty in evidence-based medicine at the intersection of clinical medicine and public health. We welcome you, Dr. Sadhna, and we are looking forward to hear from you. Over to you, ma'am.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Sadhna Joshi Mendhorwar. Thank you, Mahek, for the kind introduction. And thanks to entire Elsevier team for organizing this webinar. A very good evening to all of you, and thank you for joining this session. Lockdown. Wow, I bet I didn't know the meaning of that word a few months ago. Or maybe I knew the meaning, but never understood or experienced the exact implications thereof. I'm sure many of you are also in the same boat. Exams? Now that word is not new. I'm sure for most of us, it's something we have become accustomed to live with since we were knee high. But exams in lockdown is something most of us have never experienced. Virtually all academic circles are abuzz about the modus operandi. We will talk about exams, exam pattern, and how to prepare for the exams in this current lockdown situation. We will focus on physiology exams per se and how we are going to deal with this in current situation. So, what I intend to do in this session is, after introduction, I will specifically talk about the need. What is the need to study physiology? What are the different resources which will help to prepare for your exams? We will be talking about a book which is about 25 years old, which is tested and used by generations of students and teachers, and it's very much popular among student fraternity. Exams are very close to students' heart, and so is the book which helps them to prepare for the same. What I intend to do here is to give you some practical tips which will help you at a time of exams. We will try to walk through various exam topics. I would touch upon some topics in the cardiovascular system, endocrine, and CNS. And then we will have takeaways and a question and answer session. So all of us are going basically through Corona times. It's difficult situations which we have never imagined. Doctors and all healthcare professionals, They are working day in and day out without a break, trying to work in such difficult situations, putting their own and their family's life at stake. So they are somehow trying to manage very much stretched healthcare system currently in India. Well, we have been continuing our mission of teaching and guiding students with online classes and demonstrations. For students also, it's like never imagined situation with uncertainty about everything. As a students, we are always concerned and worried about exams. If exams will be there, if yes, when they will be there, what will be the nature of exam, whether it is online, whether it will be offline or online, how practical exam will be conducted, and so on. In the global pandemic, world itself is struggling to come up, and academics, as you all can see, is metamorphosing. But remember, every cloud has a silver lining. In this current situation of lockdown also, if you look at the positive side of it, well, you are saving a lot of time of travel to come to college. You're saving your energy. So you have time in your hands. You manage your time properly and build up a strong base in your basic sciences. Let's see why we need to study physiology. Is it just to clear your first MBBS exam, or it's beyond that? Well, let me tell you, physiology is far well ahead of what you might be thinking at this stage of life. Can we have a poll question here, please? Hello? Can we have a poll question here, please?
Yes,
We
ma'am,
will,
we are
yeah,
flashing it.
yeah, please.
You
So
can see the
we
poll
are
question
just
now.
trying to see, yeah. So we are just trying to see how
So
generally you
you
are prepared. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
you have 30 seconds to answer this. I'll share the results after 30 seconds. So here are the results.
Yes, I can see the results. Thank you. So, what I can see from the results is as I was expecting, because the response is mixed type of response, right? So, because all subjects in medicine are vast, and we always feel, right, that we are yet to prepare, we are yet to read a lot, many things are remaining, right? And with this current situation of lockdown, our psyche is totally different. So, let's move on ahead. Right. So let's try to understand what is relevance of physiology. Yeah, it's one of the basic sciences, as you know, and it's one of the subjects in your first year MBBS. And what we do in physiology, as all of you know, is we try to understand the regular functioning of the body at tissue, organ, and at cellular level, isn't it? Right. So remember, physiology is going to be with you. Take it from me. Physiology is going to be with you for your lifetime, because unless and otherwise you know what exactly is normal, we cannot diagnose and treat what is abnormal. So take it from me, it is going to be there with your lifetime. So it has got very relevant and vital role to play in modern medicine. Take it from me, if you are strong in physiology, just mark my words, you will remember me later also, right? You will find pharmacology, the mechanism of action of various drugs, very easy to understand, because all the mechanism of action of drugs is based on physiology. And very importantly, you will understand the pathophysiology of various diseases and their treatment in medicine if you are very much strong in your physiology, right? So look here, physiology is a living science. If you see what you can see on your screen is a number of Nobel Prizes you can see since last couple of decades in physiology and medicine. And just look at the topics of research, right, which you can see there. How, right from how cells they sense availability of oxygen, to how discovery of cancer therapy, to how chromosomes are protected by telomeres. So if you are planning to become a good doctor, which I'm sure you are, make your base of physiology very strong. Remember, you have to have got a strong foundation, then only you can build skyscrapers, right? Okay. So let's try to understand now what are the resources with which normally we prepare for any exam. So all of you know we what we do. You attend lectures, you go to college, you some of you attend classes, some of you refer seniors' notes, some of you have online sessions, there are tips, tricks. There is no dearth of resources, isn't it? Yes. But the common thread which is missing in them is the comprehensive treatment, the logical sequence, and how basically everything is woven effectively together and a very fine balance between building a solid understanding and preparing for the exam. So, can I have a poll question over here again, please? So it's just a teaser. We are not taking testing your test. You're not taking any tests over here. Remember, you just answer your question and then we will move ahead. Can we have a poll question here, please?
So here's the poll and you have 30 seconds to answer. Ten seconds. Here are the results.
Okay, thank you. So you had a question on basal ganglia and you had A to E options, right? So let me tell you here, the correct answer is A. That is, the subthalamic nucleus releases glutamate to excite the internal segment, or what, as we say, internal division of globus pallidus, right? Because let me just tell you in a couple of minutes over here. See, substantia nigra, what is the B option? The substantia nigra pars reticulata releases dopamine to inhibit the striatum. No, it's not pars reticulata of substantia nigra, it's pars compacta of substantia nigra, which has a dopaminergic projection to striatum. Yes. Now, many of you have put up option C. The striatum releases acetylcholine to excite the substantia nigra pars reticulata. No, in fact, it inhibits the pars reticulata of substantia nigra. If you see a motor pathway of basal ganglia, then then some of you answered D and E, right? So D is striatum releases acetylcholine to excite. This I have told you. So E is globus pallidus external segment releases glutamate to excite the striatum. No, globus pallidus does not excite striatum. So correct answer is A. That is the subthalamic nucleus will release glutamate to excite the internal division of globus pallidus, and that's the indirect pathway, motor pathway of basal ganglia, which I'll be talking about later. Right? Thank you for your responses. So let's move ahead. So I was a student like you a couple of decades ago. Yeah, those were days where we used to have very less resources. I was also struggling to read and prepare for my university exams, as currently you all are, right? That time, Dr. V.D. Joshi, who was working at Sion LTMC Mumbai in physiology department, had a huge teaching experience of teaching for AFMC Pune and say GS Medical College Mumbai. She saw my struggle and she offered me with her notes, which she had prepared for her studies. So you can say that I was a guinea pig. But honestly speaking, those notes helped me to do well in my physiology exams. Going through the notes, I understood that even my concepts in physiology are getting clear. So Dr. Joshi then decided, then why not help all the students with this? Right? And thus arose a one and only book of that times, which was 100% student friendly and exam oriented. A unique book of that time. So as expected, the book, it got stupendous response from students and teachers, and basically book started selling like a hot cake. As gradually the first MBBS duration changed from 1.5 years. When I was doing my MBBS, the first year duration was 1.5 years. It changed to 1 year. That time, this book became must for all. Well, I rejoined Journey with Book as a co-author with Dr. Joshi when I finished my MD Physiology from St. GS Medical College, Mumbai. Very recently, Dr. Viri Joshi passed away. And let me tell you over here, she was my mother. So you can imagine how the book must be close to me. And my mission is to take Dr. Joshi ma'am's vision to next level of helping students further in achieving their goals. So a book has gone from time to time, it has gone through lots of feedbacks from students and teaching fraternity. And that is how we are currently into 6th edition of the book. And very soon we will have the 7th one. Right? So as I have promised you, I will brief you with certain topics that will help you to prepare for your exam so that all of you get benefit of attending this particular session as well. So all of you are aware of last academic year, 1920, since 1920, MCI has put up, it has changed the curriculum, and that curriculum for MBBS is, we call it as a CBME pattern, CBME curriculum, where you know CBME stands for the competency-based medical education, where what they have done is that they have made specific learning objectives, and then you have got even you have got your ECE, that's early clinical exposure, right from your preclinical subjects. So according to new pattern of CBME put up by MCI, all of you know that there are 2 papers in physiology, and each paper will be having 100 marks. And so as you can see on your screens, the paper 1, you have got a particular group of systems put up under paper 1, and particular systems will fall under paper 2. And what you can see on your screen besides that is the exam pattern of each paper. So you will have section A and section B, as you all know. You have MCQs, which will be of 20 marks, right? Out of that, 4 MCQs will be application based. So these particular MCQs will test your knowledge of physiology, how you are able to apply your knowledge of physiology application wise when a case scenario or a question is put up or a problem solving question is put up. Then in section B, you have got brief answer questions, you have got short answer questions, and you have got your LAQs, that is your long answer questions, right? So that is about the syllabus, as all of you know, the CBME pattern, competency based medical education, as you all know, right? So all of us know now it's basically your LAQs, SAQs, short notes, and MCQs. Take it from me, if you are thorough with your theory, solving MCQs is never a problem. Take it from me, right? So basically you have got LAQs, SAQs, or short notes or short answer questions, whatever your exam in your exam pattern. So all of you know, suppose we take a particular system, what you can see there, I have just displayed a question which can come as LAQs for cardiovascular system. So we can very well guess what frequently asked questions in a particular system as LAQ. And they always give a structured LAQ, which has got a split up of marks. And one sub question definitely comes like, what is the applied part of that particular topic. For example, like suppose a question comes on blood pressure as a full question, describe blood pressure, short-term regulation of blood pressure. They will split it up properly, and ultimately in one particular sub question, they will ask, say, what is essential hypertension, some applied part of that. You will have different SAQs, like you might be asked to say, define a particular thing or classify or state some laws, or maybe draw some diagrams, or maybe you will have a numerical problem, or you just enumerate some factors affecting GFR, or differentiate between your diabetes, mellitus, insipidus, whatever you can say, right? So, or you can have case scenarios like, suppose a person, ABC person is coming with weight loss and tiredness, and he's complaining of loss of weight despite of increased appetite. All the things which you learn in physiology, they will see by putting some questions whether you are able to apply that particular thing in the case scenario, right? And you can have short notes, which can be combination of any of the above. Like they might put define this and enumerate this, or it can come as a short note. So as you can take it from me that if this particular is the curriculum and this particular is the pattern, what the book I am talking about is in align completely with the curriculum. The book is in question answer format. But remember one thing over here, very honestly, let me tell you this book is not just a mugging type of book. Basically, you cannot mug up in medicine. Take it from me, right? Any medicine to mug up, it's beyond physiological capacity of anybody's brain to mug up in any subject in medicine. So this particular book, as I told you, has got a question answer format, and this question answer format per se has got a particular logical flow and sequence when you try to read or go through the book. If you skip the questions and if you try to read only answers, right, you will feel like you are reading a system from any textbook, right? And when you club various small questions and answers together, you automatically prepare for your long answer question. So as a student and teacher and now author, my understanding is that this book is perfectly in line with exam and curriculum. Fine. Okay. So can we have a poll question here, please? Please submit your responses. So this is a question for you.
Ten seconds to go. Here are the results, ma'am.
Okay, so most of the students have answered the option as B. But let me tell you, and many of them have answered D as well. The correct answer is option C, and that's the granule cells release glutamate. You know, it's excitatory neurotransmitter. It releases glutamate to excite basket and stellate cells. Let me brief you here within few minutes why other options are not the answers, right? So first, the option A was basket cells release glutamate to activate Purkinje cells. All of you know basket and stellate cells, they are inhibitory cells, right? They don't activate Purkinje cells, they in fact inhibit Purkinje cells, right? So the option B was climbing fiber input exerts a strong excitatory effect on Purkinje cell, and the mossy fiber input exerts a strong inhibitory effect on Purkinje cell. Mind you, climbing and mossy fiber, both inputs, they cause excitation of Purkinje cell, but the way in which they excite Purkinje cell is different, right? Option D is also wrong, because what is the D option? The axons of Purkinje cell are the sole output of cerebellar cortex as they release glutamate to excite the deep cerebral nuclei. No, the deep cerebral, the Purkinje cell send inhibitory projections to deep cerebral nuclei, and that is why, because of this, if you recollect whatever you have learned in your cerebellar circuitry, if you recollect that delay line negative feedback principle, it is because of this particular thing, Purkinje cell inhibiting deep cerebral nuclei, there is no pass pointing with intact cerebellum, right? And Golgi cells are inhibited by mossy fiber collaterals was your last option, which is also wrong, because Golgi cells are not inhibited. They are stimulated, in fact, by the mossy fiber collaterals. So the correct answer was option C, where the granule cells glutamate, they excite basket and stellate cells, ultimately which will inhibit Purkinje cell. Basket and stellate cells, they are known to inhibit Purkinje cells, right? So this particular book will help you to prepare such questions, right? So let me close this here. So let's move ahead. Well, what you see here is we'll just have a quick book walkthrough, right? So what you see here is the various table of contents which are covered in the book. So as you can see here, it covers entire physiology, all the systems, all the questions, all the discussion is in exam question answer format, and there is comprehensive covering of each and every topic, right? So as I have promised you, I will now touch upon I will give you a particular section of this book. I will talk about from cardiovascular system, and I will make you understand over here how student friendly it is. So let us go to 6th edition of the prep manual, page number 378, as you can see it on your screens. And let's see what is there. And there is baroreceptors. So all of you are very much aware of baroreceptors, how they play an important role in regulation of blood pressure, especially the blood pressure is maintained constant whenever we are changing our posture. So it is because of intact baroreceptors, the postural variations in the blood pressure are prevented, or our blood pressure is regulated despite of changes in our posture. So you are aware of baroreceptors, you are aware of what are baro? They are pressure receptors. Basically, they are stretch receptors. I'm not teaching you over here baroreceptor reflex, right? So you know what is the mechanism of action of baroreceptors and how they work. So what you can see there in the book is the mechanism of action of baroreceptors, which is displayed in a flow chart like manner, right? So what you can see there is a hypothetical situation is put up there, where if there is an increased blood pressure, how these baroreceptors, you know where they are present? They are present in the arch of aorta and near bifurcation of common carotid in carotid and aortic sinuses respectively. So whenever there is increase in the blood pressure, the vessel wall gets stretched. So they are pressure, they are basically stretch receptors. So whenever blood pressure increases, they are stretched and they fire, right? And whenever blood pressure falls, they are less stretched and they fire, right? So both ways it acts. So what you can see there is how beautifully the mechanism of action of baroreceptor has been explained, how with increasing blood pressure, the stretching of the wall sends signals to your baroreceptors, and that goes to sensory area of tractus solitarius. And then from there, how the signals will go to vasomotor area. When we say reflex, mind you, reflex has to have got a receptor, afferent, center, efferent, and effector. So for baroreceptors are the receptors, aortic and carotid. You have got 9th and 10th cranial now. All of you know that. And then when signals go to vasomotor center, what two things it does, as you can see there on the flow chart, is it causes inhibition of vasoconstrictor area and excitation of vagus center. And what are the effects of inhibition of vasoconstriction area? Mainly, it will cause vasoconstriction of all the components, especially vasodilatation of arterioles and vasodilatation of veins. And as you know, majority of the peripheral resistance resides in arterioles. What you see is this decreases the peripheral resistance, and all these mechanisms, how they get the blood pressure back to normal via vasodilatation of arterioles and veins. Similarly, excitation of vagal center, what you can see it there, it's displayed over there, how it causes inhibition of the heart, how it causes inhibition of the heart by 4 different mechanisms. That is decrease in the heart rate, decrease in the force of contraction, decrease excitability, and decrease rate of impulse conduction. That's your negative inotropic, chronotropic, dromotropic, and bathmotropic effects, and how effectively all these mechanisms together help in decreasing the blood pressure. And when blood pressure decreases, or when it comes back to normal, there is no more stretch on these baroreceptors. So this particular flow chart explains you beautifully how you can write a question, which is quite a favorite question asked in the exams as well as in Viva also, right? So you can write your answer instead of writing it in a flow chart manner. Your answer also becomes presentable, and that saves your time as well when you write like this in a flow chart manner. And you can write effectively, and you can save your time also. So as I have told you, it's a book which is absolutely student friendly, right? Let me move ahead and just try to tell you. Let me give you another example from the book, 6th edition again, page number 268 to 272. So page number 268, basically, this section has this particular page numbers. They are for endocrine systems. And what you can see on these particular pages is there are some questions on insulin, right? What is insulin? The book completely is in the question answer format, as I told you, right? So just by reading these two couple of pages, right, you understand all the insulin effects, physiological effects, metabolic effects of insulin on the all three metabolisms, and what happens if there is, how they are regulated, and what happens if there is, it goes haywire. So what happens when there is diabetes? So take it from me, when you read these couple of pages, you will be able to answer these many questions. So I had just put it as an example for you so that you understand. Suppose you will, I mean, suppose you get LAQs, suppose you read these 3-4 pages, you can answer these LAQs like insulin and its metabolic effects, insulin regulation and factors regulating it, physiological basis of maintenance of blood sugar levels, right? Pathophysiology of diabetes mellitus, and the huge list of various SAQs and short notes which you will be able to write effectively, right, when you just read these 2 or 3 pages from the book. Besides this, now the CBME curriculum has got the ECE, that is early clinical exposure. So you will be having applied questions or problem based questions, which I have not put it here, but let me tell you here, besides your LAQs and SAQs and short notes which you will be able to write, suppose you will also be able to write applied question when you read these particular pages, right? Suppose a question is put up to you, like a person is obese, having a high BMI, his blood sugar levels are borderline high. So what you will advise, what lifestyle modifications you will advise, you will be able to answer. Or say a person comes with complaint of polyuria and polyphagia, and there is fatigue and non-healing injury. So what investigations you would like to advise? Or suppose a question will come like person comes unconscious to casualty having acetone breath, what investigation you would like to do? Right? So besides your LAQs, SAQs and short notes, you will also be able to answer the applied or a problem-based questions which will be there with the current change in our syllabus, as all of you know, right? So I just gave you example of endocrine system in this book, how you get in-depth knowledge, and you are saving you a lot of your time, and you have to be basically exam oriented when exams are near, obviously, right? So um, let's move ahead. As I had promised you with, I'll touch upon the CNS as well. So what you can see, we'll just go back again to the book, 6th edition, page number 445, right? So this particular book shows you a diagram. Yes. So have a look at this diagram. So it's a simple diagrammatic diagram, right? What all it is making us to understand, if you just have a look at the diagram and think for a few seconds, right? This diagram is making you understand how cerebellum, right? This is cerebellum, how cerebellum and vestibular nuclei are well connected with the cortex, right? And how this loop is connected with the red nucleus in the brainstem, which is ultimately controlling the activity of your all descending pyramidal and extrapyramidal tracts, right? So what you see in this diagram is how beautifully the cerebellum is getting input from the neck muscles. So this neck muscles, this forms your cuneo-cerebellar tract. Then it's getting input from limb muscles and trunk muscles, that forms your spinocerebellar tract. It gets input from vestibular tract, that vestibule that forms your vestibulocerebellar tract. So we have got all the afferents entering in the cerebellum, all the afferents coming to the cerebellum, right, via your spinocerebellar, cuneo-cerebellar, tectocerebellar, which is giving you auditory and visual input, and vestibulocerebellar tract. And then how, after getting input from all these afferents, how cerebellum effectively, you are aware of circuitry of the cerebellum, how cerebellum effectively puts it sends its projections via thalamus to cortex, and then how cortex ultimately is able to modulate or calculate how much excitatory signals should go from this PT's pyramidal tract, or the descending pathways per se. And where they are going? They are going to your ventral root of spinal cord, that is your alpha motor neurons, that is your final common pathway whenever you want to perform any particular motor activity. So just a simple diagrammatic diagram, if you have a look at it, it is explaining to you, it is able to tell you so many things, right? Making it very easy for you. So this particular diagram is making us understand the role of vestibular nuclei, cerebellum and cortex with lots of inputs, how the posture of the body is controlled, and how head and neck movement and eye movements are also controlled during all the movements, right? So this particular diagram I wanted to show to you people, like how this diagram, simple diagram, is making you understand all those things which you may find it difficult to understand. Well, this particular thing which I'm going to show you is not there in the current edition, but I'm planning to put it in my next edition. I thought, let me tell you, and let you have some advantage of attending this session. So I'm going to talk very briefly about the basal ganglia circuitry, which most of you find it difficult to understand, right? So all of you are aware that there are a group of nuclei present at the base of the brain, and we call them as basal ganglia. So I consider that you know the internal external division of globus pallidus, you know caudate nucleus, putamen, you know pars reticulata of substantia nigra and pars compacta of substantia nigra and subthalamic nucleus. So considering that, let me show you how the basal ganglia circuitry works. So what you see here is the pars reticulata of substantia nigra and internal division of globus pallidus. These particular neurons in this particular nuclei, they are continuously firing at rest. So we are just trying to understand the basal ganglia circuitry. So neurons in this area are continuously firing at rest, and what they are doing, they are causing inhibition of thalamic nuclei, and they are causing inhibition of upper motor neurons in the superior colliculi. So there is continuous inhibition of thalamic nuclei and inhibition of upper motor neurons in superior colliculi, which is responsible for causing tonic inhibition of the upper motor neurons. And that is why at rest, when these cells are firing at rest, when we are not doing any motor movement or eye movement, superior colliculi goes to eye, right? So there is inhibition of thalamic nuclei and inhibition of upper motor neurons in the superior colliculi, which is preventing any excitatory signals to go to cortex from basal ganglia. And therefore we say basal ganglia acts as a gatekeeper, and it just closes the gate whenever we are not doing any eye movement or body movement. Right. Let's move ahead with what happens with direct pathway. There was one question with your poll question on basal ganglia circuitry, as you know. Right. So what is a direct pathway? All of you know the caudate nucleus and putamen, right? So when cortex sends commands for a motor activity, it sends excitatory signals to caudate nucleus and putamen. Now these cells, they are absolutely active, absolutely quiet at rest. They become active just prior to your eye movement or body movement. So when these caudate nucleus and putamen together, you call that as corpus striatum. So when these neurons, when these cells become active, what they do is they inhibit these cells which are continuously firing at rest. So the direct to caudate nucleus and putamen, it is causing inhibition of these cells which are otherwise firing at the rest and keeping inhibition of upper motor neurons. So with direct pathway, when these cells are inhibited, which are normally active at rest, keeping the gates closed, with direct pathway, basal ganglia opens the gates, and what you see is tonic inhibition of these cells. And if these cells are inhibited with direct pathway, they are not able to do their function. So there is disinhibition of thalamic nuclei, and that will remove this inhibition, and excitatory signals will go via basal ganglia to thalamus, and accordingly there will be precise excitation of upper motor neurons going via descending pathways to spinal cord. So this is how the direct pathway in the basal ganglia basically works, and how basal ganglia circuitry helps to open the gates, right? Direct pathway helps to open the gates by inhibiting these structures, and by sending excited, when these gates open with direct pathway, what happens is there is excitatory signals, they go from basal ganglia to the cortex, and then ultimately cortex sends excitatory signals via the descending tracts, right? Now, with respect to direct pathway, all of you know there is some indirect pathway. Always in physiology you will find, so indirect pathway is obviously it's opposite to direct pathway. So if direct pathway with cortex causing excitation of caudate nucleus and putamen, and caudate nucleus and putamen trying to inhibit these structures and trying to open the gates, the indirect pathway is will have an exact opposite role, and it will try to close the gates. So the circuitry for that is caudate nucleus and putamen. As it sends projection, as it inhibits these structures, it also sends projections to external division of globus pallidus, right? And external division of globus pallidus in turn project to both these nuclei, that is pars reticulata of substantia nigra and internal division of globus pallidus. And it also causes inhibition. You can see I have put here a negative mark. It causes inhibition of subthalamic nucleus. So when this subthalamic nucleus is inhibited via projection from external division of globus pallidus in this indirect pathway, this subthalamic nucleus per se causes excitation of these cells, right? So normally these cells are active, they keep the gate closed, and basal ganglia acts as a gatekeeper when we are not doing any movement. With direct pathway, these cells are inhibited, so they lose their function, the gates open, and facilitator signals go via basal ganglia for a motor movement. With indirect pathway, via subthalamus, exactly opposite action, these cells are getting stimulated. That means if with direct pathway, these cells are getting inhibited, with indirect pathway, these cells are getting stimulated. So indirect pathway will try to close the gates, right? So amount of disinhibition of thalamic nuclei, which these structures are able to achieve with direct pathway, this indirect pathway via subthalamic nucleus, by stimulating these cells, will try to close the gates. So this happens simultaneously. Remember, it's not like direct pathway happening and then after some time indirect pathway happening. These things happen simultaneously, so that with direct pathway, there is precise opening of the gates. With indirect pathway, there is precise closing of the gates. So exactly a balance between how much gates to open, how much gates should be closed, and precise excitatory signals, whatever is required. What is economy is, whatever is required is given, not less and not more. So with correct balance of direct and indirect pathway, what you see is there is optimum excitatory signals will go via basal ganglia to upper motor neurons, and then to the cortex, and then ultimately via your descending tracts. Now, besides this, so I hope all of you are pretty much clear with direct and indirect pathway, how direct pathway helps to open the gates and facilitates the movement, and how indirect pathway will try to close these gates and inhibit the movement, and precise balance between the two, we are able to achieve any particular movement effectively and skillfully, right? To add to this, you have got dopaminergic inputs, right, which are coming from pars compacta of substantia nigra. I will not go into details of receptors, but just remember whether they are dopaminergic receptors, they are called as nigro, is from substantia nigra. So nigrostrial projections. Why strial? Because caudate nucleus and putamen together, you call it as corpus striatum. So these dopaminergic projections, which modulates your which are modulated by the dopaminergic input, right? What they are doing, basically, remember, whether they are D1 or D2 receptors, they are there to help the movement. They are there to facilitate the movement, right? If you are interested, let me tell you over here, the D1 receptors per se, they help direct pathway. So D1 receptors will project here, and they will help direct pathway. They will try to open the gates. And D2 receptors, mind you, D2 receptors, pay your attention, will try to inhibit the indirect pathway. So if D2 receptors are trying to inhibit the indirect pathway, and direct and indirect pathway are opposite to each other, anyways, whether it is D1 or D2, the dopaminergic projection is going to open the gates and facilitate the movement. It will see to it that dopaminergic projection will send more excitatory signals from basal ganglia to cortex, right? And therefore, if you have understood that what I'm trying to tell you here is why I discuss this particular circuitry here, is if you are thorough with your physiology, see here, if there is some problem with your indirect pathway, if there is a lesion of subthalamic nucleus, which plays a role in closure of gates, right? What you see is excessive abnormal opening of gates, and what you see with damage to subthalamic nucleus is your Huntington's disease, your hemibalismus, athetosis, violent movements, violent abnormal excessive motor movement happens when in direct pathway the subthalamic nucleus gets damaged, right? what you will see is your Huntington's disease with athetosis and chorea, because here the indirect pathway of closing the gates is not working properly, and the more and more excitatory signals will go beyond physiological limits. More and more abnormal excitatory signals will go via basal ganglia to cortex, which will lead to abnormal, rapid, violent motor movements. So try to apply your knowledge of physiology over here, right? If you are thorough with circuitry, if you get a question, you will immediately understand what happens with lesion to subthalamic nucleus, right? Similarly, here you come across with dopaminergic projections. So if dopaminergic receptors are going to facilitate the movement, they are going to, whether it is D1 or D2, they are going to help to open these gates and send excitatory signals via upper motor neurons to your descending tracts. Obviously, if there is a degeneration of dopaminergic degeneration, what happens? What will happen with dopaminergic degeneration? If dopamine is going to facilitate the movement, dopaminergic degeneration will cause, it will not facilitate movement, and what you see is your Parkinson's disease, and you will find that dopamine, which is helping movement to happen, will, so gates will not open effectively via basal ganglia, and then it will cause akinesia, bradykinesia. So try to apply your knowledge of physiology basically to understand how in a disease condition what happens exactly, and then how you treat this. You give L-Dopa. You supplement person with dopamine if there is dopamine deficiency. So just try to apply your logic of your knowledge of physiology. You will understand the rest second and third year subjects very easily. Take it from me. So this is the basal ganglia circuitry for all of you, right? Let's move ahead. So practically we are nearing the end of the session. So we will have just a quick recap, right? So please value your time. You have limited time in hand, right? And with all the uncertainties, right, in between, as we understand with lockdown situations, you try to focus and understand and try to master the subject, right? Take it from me, you will definitely benefit with this for your future careers. Hmm? If you work with a plan, if you work a plan out with a broader vision, right, you will not regret having studied the subject irrespective of future of your exams. Take it from me, right? So use proven resources which have benefited generations of students, right? Very frequently, I mean, I regularly come across senior doctors, right, who fondly recollect how they have used this book effectively in preparing for their exams. And as I have said earlier in my talk, my principal motivation in continuing to enrich this particular book is to cement this relation which generations of doctors, teachers, and students continue to cherish. I'm sure many of you attending this session are representing the next generation of doctors. So it has been my pleasure to talk to you about this book, right, which is very near and dear to me, both the personal and professional perspective. I welcome you to share your thoughts, your suggestions, your comments in enhancing this book further. And I definitely look forward all of you joining this family woven around this particular book. So I wish you all the very best in your upcoming endeavors. Please stay healthy, stay safe. All the best to you for everything. And I will be glad to answer your queries. So thank you and wish you all the best. So session is open for question and answer.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sadhana, for this lovely session. So most of the students here, they want to know more about how they can appear for the exams in terms of more elaborative way. If you can explain that how they can take up the multiple choice questions, they are stuck between the two, how they can, what is the kind of answer length which they should be mentioning in the long answer
Hello.
questions.
Sorry, in between you were not audible.
So
Can you just
students are
repeat?
more keen to hear about the study tips here in detail.
Okay.
So if you can just elaborate your last slide a little bit more. So we have a lot of questions related to that, that what is the kind of length long answer questions should have. how much they should write in the long answer question, and how what is the kind of strategy they should be adopting for attempting the multiple choice questions. So
Okay.
more light needs to be thrown on the study tips here, because now I can see there is a lot of worry among the students for
Okay.
attempting the exams.
Okay.
So
So
more elaborative view on study tips is required here, ma'am.
okay, sure. So all of you students, all of you know what is the exam pattern basically. So as I have told you, now you particularly focus now exam point of view, right? So you know what is there, what particular systems are there in paper one, what particular systems are there in paper two. And all of you have, I'm sure all of you have the question bank, and all of you have got previous university ka question bank. And even in the markets also books are available with previous question bank. So just take one system, right? And try to understand, okay, suppose I give you example of cardiovascular system. Just take one system, right? And just try to understand, just enlist that what all full questions can come in this particular system. Suppose I give you example of cardiovascular system. So you might have a question, long question on say blood pressure regulation. You might get a question on pressure volume changes of cardiac cycle. You might get a question on initiation and conduction of cardiac impulse. You might get a question on cardiac output, factors regulating, controlling cardiac output. You might get a question on what should I say, um, your shock, physiology of shock, right? So accordingly, when you go and try to understand a particular system, see what all full questions can come in that particular system, right? And when you read this particular book, as I have told you, just read answers, right? It's like reading a system from any textbook, and then just read question and answer. So when you start reading and when you club the answers of various SAQs, right, you automatically get, as I have told you, this particular book has got a sequential flow, right? It's not like it has got a sequence, and therefore you will find it when you club all the answers, small SAQs together, you get the answer for LAQs. So like that, you go for a particular system. All subjects in medicine are vast, but think exam point of view. Think what questions are going to come for LAQs for a system, and when take it from me, when you cover, suppose now I have told you what all questions come under CDS. So if you are covering all the LAQs in a particular system, you can very well attempt all SAQs, short notes, and MCQs. See, MCQ solving, basically, if you are thorough with your theory part, MCQ solving is never a problem. As even I use, you could answer, many of you could answer in your MCQs also, right? The poll question which I had put. So when you prepare for LAQs, take it from me. Suppose now, for example, you have prepared yourself for say a blood pressure regulation question, full question. So suppose a short question comes like define blood pressure and enumerate various short-term mechanisms. So you're able to answer, right? Or they say just give a short note on baroreceptor reflex. You're able to answer, right? Suppose you're preparing for LAQ, say for shock, right? So so you can just write a short note on say what are the features of progressive stage of shock. So automatically, what I'm trying to tell you here is automatically when you cover all the full questions, your SAQ short note gets automatically covered. And with this particular book, let me tell you, you are automatically preparing for your Viva voce also, right? Which many of students find it very difficult because basically as a would-be doctors, you will be tested with your good effective communication skills, because ultimately you have to talk with you should be able to talk with all age groups, right? So this particular book will prepare for your Viva voce as well, right? So automatically the LAQs, SAQs, and like that, focus on one particular system and then try to cover all full questions with that particular system, and then you will be able to answer your short notes and the applied part also. Don't worry about the applied part, because once like I give you example, once how exactly, suppose a person with a thyroid actions, if you know normal thyroid actions, you will be able to understand a person comes with suppose there is gain of weight despite loss of appetite. So you know how you apply your knowledge of physiology. So even if you feel like it's like what is this new early clinical exposure and all, it's just to see, it's just to make you understand how you are going to apply the knowledge of physiology which you are learning as a one of the basic sciences in your first MBBS year, how effective, how important it is that you try to apply it. Let me tell you here very honestly, so many people, so many students of mine who are doing medicine, or who are doing their post graduation, they are telling me, madam, you have taught us cardiac cycle, and now effectively we are able to diagnose, what exactly is the mid diastolic murmur, or a systolic murmur, or a early mid diastolic murmur. So your knowledge of physiology is going to be with you lifetime. Take it from me, and will uh, you will be with this physiology for your lifetime, because unless and otherwise you know what exactly is normal, you are not able to diagnose and treat what is abnormal, right? So all the best to all of you. Any other question, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am, we have one more. If you can just throw some light on any important topics you suggest that they should be surely reading, because they have very less time and they'll not be able to cover the entire syllabus. So if you
Okay.
can just recommend some important topics they should be quickly checking on or going to before attempting the exam.
Okay, they want particular system, they want particular questions, or like in general they want?
In general, if you can just recommend some topics, important topics, which they
Okay.
should be considering before, which are the must ones and the
Sure.
important ones before
Sure.
appearing for the exam. Yeah.
Sure. So let me tell you here, as you just uttered the word must know, right? So these you students have got your in your syllabus must know, nice to know, and desirable to know part. So let me tell you here, this book entirely 100% covers what is must know for you, right? What particular topic which is nice to know for you or desirable to know for you as a first year MBBS student, let me tell you, is not there in this book. So this book precisely is the book you should use for the exam. And if you ask me a particular systems which frequently come short, the full question will come is you be thorough with your cardiovascular system, with your respiratory system, with your central nervous system, kidney, right? So just go through all these systems very deeply, and try to cover all the LAQs and SAQs, and short notes will automatically fall in their place, and MCQs will automatically fall in their place, as I have told you. Any other question, ma'am?
The last one I'll take, ma'am. So, as you know, it's a lockdown situation. If
Correct.
students are unable to have a look at this title right now, so
Correct.
any other tips you want to suggest from the online learning or from the classroom teaching, whatever is happening, that which can benefit them in preparing for the exams?
So whatever they are basically trying to learn from, whatever resources they are trying to learn, whether it's online sessions, whether they're trying to run from internet, and what they should do is that ultimately all medicine subjects are vast. So please students, don't get lost into the sea, right? Focus your studies, because ultimately if you open just Parkinson's disease, you will find lots of things, what exactly to write and what exactly not to write, what is not required, you might not understand. So whatever you are referring to standard books, you refer to that. And my suggestion to you is that just take out the points, right? One night before the exam, so you should have a physiological sleep of at least 7 hours. Don't uh, wake up, don't have sleepless night and study any subject in medicine. That causes confusion physiologically, let me tell you. So you prepare yourself, and what you should do is that you make your points. Like suppose a particular question, suppose a LAQ comes on GFR, so you just mention in your notes. So if GFR full question comes, I will write this in introduction, then I will write this, then I will draw this diagram, then I will write this, so on and so forth. So only those points you will be able to revise one night before with a good sleep, right? Don't try to open your books and read everything. It is not just beyond human capacity physiologically to read everything. So use your time effectively. You have got still lot of time is available. Take it from me, it's my personal experience. Even if 1 minute you have got, so many things you can do. Take it from me, right? So be use your time effectively, right? Don't waste time, and read this irrespective of exams. As you can see, I have shown you the circuitry, how your physiology knowledge will help you in your second year, your third year, and and whatever career you choose as a would-be good, successful doctors and professionals. Any other question, ma'am?
No, ma'am. Thank you so much for the suggestions and the tips and the pointers. For everybody's notice, we're just going to end the session. So the recording of this session will be emailed to you, and
Okay.
also the certificates will be emailed to each and every attendee of the session.
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you
So
so much for
thank you
joining this.
everyone. Thank you
Thank you,
everyone for
everyone.
sparing
Thank
your
you so
valuable
much.
time. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you.